Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Soldier's Peace. Frankie Ramsey wiped down the mahogany bar top with the same precision he'd once used to clean his service weapon. The den wasn't just a bar. It was his monument to surviving 12 years in military intelligence. A place where the only explosions came from laughter and the only casualties were hangovers. Another round, Frankie? Santiago Richmond, a regular who'd been coming since opening night 3 years ago, pushed his empty glass forward. The old mechanic had hands stained with engine grease that never quite washed out. Last one, Santiago. Marie will have my head if I send you home, stumbling again. Frankie poured 2 fingers of whiskey, noting the way Santiago's hands trembled slightly. Not from alcohol, from something else. Santiago clutched the glass, but didn't drink. Frankie, I need to tell you something. Those cops who've been coming around the neighborhood. The door burst open. 2 uniformed officers strode in, their swagger announcing them louder than any badge. The shorter one, with a face like a bulldog, scanned the room with predatory intent. We're closed, Frankie said evenly, his voice carrying the weight of command he'd learned in Kandahar. Not for us. The bulldog cop, his nameplate Red Keller, approached Santiago. Santiago Richmond, you missed your court date. I didn't have no court date, Santiago protested, standing up. The second cop, taller with cold eyes, grabbed Santiago's arm. Resisting now? That's another charge. Frankie moved around the bar in 3 smooth steps. Officers, there's clearly been a mistake. Santiago's been here since 6. I can vouch. Keller's hand went to his baton. You vouching for a criminal? Maybe we need to check your licenses, see if everything's up to code here. They locked eyes. Frankie saw, immediately, the look of a predator who'd never met real resistance. Keller expected fear. Instead, Frankie smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Of course, officers. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. He stepped aside. They dragged Santiago out. As the door closed, Frankie memorized their badge numbers, the slight bulge in Keller's left pocket that suggested a burner phone, the way the tall one, Gilbert, his tag read, kept checking the street like he expected someone. These weren't regular cops. These were wolves. The back door opened and Marie Lee Ramsey emerged from the stockroom, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. A freelance photojournalist, she'd been documenting the neighborhood's revitalization for a magazine spread. Now her face was pale. Frankie, I was in the alley taking shots of the murals. I saw them. Before they came in here, they beat a man behind the laundromat. Just beat him and took his wallet. Frankie pulled her close. What did you see exactly? The short one, Keller, he was counting money. Lots of it. The other one was laughing about collections. Frankie, they're not collecting fines. They're extorting. Frankie's voice went flat. He'd seen this before, in Iraqi provinces where corrupt police were indistinguishable from the militias. How many photos did you get? 5, maybe 6. I was using the telephoto. Upload them to the cloud. Tonight, 3 different services. His mind was already working, running scenarios like mission briefings. And Marie, don't come to the bar for a few days. She pulled back. What? Frankie, no. We built this together, which is why I need you safe. He cupped her face. I've dealt with worse than crooked cops, but I need to know you're protected. Marie's jaw set, that stubborn look he'd fallen in love with. I'm not running, but I'm also not stupid. I'll stay with Janet Dunlap from the paper. She's been wanting me to work on that downtown project anyway. Good. He kissed her forehead. This is going to get worse before it gets better. How much worse? Frankie thought about Keller's eyes, about the systematic way they'd targeted Santiago, about Marie's photos of money changing hands. This wasn't opportunistic corruption. This was organized. Remember when I told you about Fallujah? How we had to root out an entire cell that had infiltrated the local police. Marie nodded slowly. Worse than that, because this is home. That night, after Marie left for Janet's place, Frankie stood alone in the Denver. He pulled out a burner phone from the safe, old habits from intelligence work, and made 3 calls. The first to Dave Blankenship, his bartender, warning him to be careful. The second to a contact at the VA who owed him a favor. The third to a number he hadn't dialed in 4 years. Payne, a gruff voice answered. Jacob, it's Frankie Ramsey. Remember when you said if I ever needed IA, you'd listen? A pause. What V you got? Corrupt cops. Extortion. Assault. And I think it's bigger than just 2 uniforms. How much bigger? Frankie looked at the bar he'd built, the life he'd crafted from the ashes of war. Big enough that they think they're untouchable. You got proof. Getting it. But Jacob, I need to know who I can trust in the department. Another pause, longer this time. Frankie, there's rumors about a crew running protection in your district. If you're calling me, that means they've noticed you. They noticed me tonight. Then be careful. These guys don't leave witnesses. Frankie smiled grimly in the darkness. Jacob, I survived 12 years of military intelligence. I don't plan on being a witness. You let that sink in. I plan on being the prosecutor, jury, and executioner. Chapter 2. The Wolves' Territory. Detective Christian McClure sat in his Escalade outside a Vietnamese restaurant on Morrison Street, counting the take. 12,000 from the week's collections. Restaurants, bars, massage parlors, anyone who wanted to operate without problems. His crew had it down to a science. Boss, that new place, The Den. Keller said the owner's got an attitude. Randy Keller leaned against the SUV, still in uniform. Stupid, wearing it while collecting, but Keller liked the intimidation factor. The military guy? McClure didn't look up from the money. Ramsey, yeah, all polite and shit, but his eyes. Keller trailed off. Roger Gilbert, McClure's oldest partner in this enterprise, lit a cigarette. Eyes like what? Like he was counting my teeth to see which ones to knock out. McClure finally looked up. He'd been running this operation for 6 years, ever since he realized his detective salary couldn't support his ex-wife's alimony, his gambling debts, and his taste for expensive scotch. The key was choosing targets carefully: immigrants, ex-cons, people who wouldn't run to IA. War veterans usually fell in line quick, too broken by PTSD to fight back. Then we break him gentle. Let him know how things work. Everyone pays, or everyone suffers. He handed Keller $2,000. Take Gilbert tomorrow. Visit the Den during business hours. Make it friendly. Offer protection from us. And if he refuses? McClure smiled. Nobody refuses twice. What McClure didn't know was that Frankie Ramsey had already placed a micro camera in the Den's light fixture, pointed at the door. What he didn't know was that Marie's photos were already with a lawyer, in a sealed envelope marked, "In case of emergency." What he didn't know was that Frankie had spent the morning calling every business owner in a 6-block radius, asking careful questions. The pattern emerged by noon. 17 businesses paying protection. 3 owners hospitalized for refusing. 2 places burned down. And at the center of it all, Detective Christian McClure, who'd somehow avoided every IA investigation for 6 years. Frankie sat in his office above the Den, studying the map he'd created. Red pins for victims. Blue pins for the cops' usual routes. Yellow pins for businesses that had recently closed. 4 of them, all within 3 months of refusing to pay. Dave Blankenship knocked and entered. The bartender was 26, working his way through law school, and sharp enough to notice when something was wrong. Boss, those cops from last night? They're back. Different guys, but same energy. Frankie checked the camera feed. Keller and Gilbert, in civilian clothes this time, taking a booth. He pocketed his phone and headed downstairs, pausing at the bar. Dave, if things go sideways, you hit the panic button and get out the back. Understand. Frankie, what's... Understand. Dave nodded. Frankie approached their booth with 2 glasses of water. Gentlemen, what can I get you? Gilbert looked up, lazy smile on his face. Information. We're looking into some thefts in the area. Wondering if you've seen anything unusual. Unusual how? Keller leaned forward. Usual how, he mocked. You military guys are all the same. Think you're so disciplined, so squared away. But you're in civilian world now. Ramsey, different rules. I know the rules, Frankie said evenly. Do you? Gilbert pulled out a folder, spread photos on the table. Businesses with broken windows, burned out storefronts, a man with a bandaged head. These are people who didn't understand the rules, thought they could operate in this neighborhood without cooperation. Frankie studied the photos with the trained eye of someone who'd analyze surveillance images in war zones. Looks like they need better insurance. Keller's jaw clenched. Insurance doesn't cover stupidity. See, there's a fee. For operating safely. For making sure the wrong element doesn't target your business. How much? 20% of gross. Monthly. Frankie laughed, genuinely laughed. It threw them off. You're shaking down businesses for 20%? That's not a protection racket. That's a partnership. I want equity for that kind of cut. Gilbert's smile faded. This ain't negotiable. Everything's negotiable. Frankie slid the photos back. But let me be clear, I'm not interested in partners. I survived Kandahar, Fallujah, and Ramadi. You think some second-rate shakedown artists scare me? Keller stood up fast, chair scraping. His hand moved toward his belt, where his off-duty piece would be. Careful, Frankie said, voice dropping to a register that made Dave freeze at the bar. You pull that weapon, you'd better use it. Because if you don't, I will. The threat hung in the air. It wasn't bravado. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the certainty of a man who'd killed before and would again if necessary. Gilbert pulled Keller back. Easy. We're all friends here. He stood up slowly. Mr. Ramsey, you seem like a smart guy. Think about what we said. We'll be back Friday for your answer. I'll have one ready. They left. Dave rushed over. Jesus, Frankie, you can't. I can and I will. Frankie pulled out his phone, checking the recording. Crystal clear audio. Dave, call this number. He handed over a card. Jacob Payne, Internal Affairs. Tell him you witnessed Officers Keller and Gilbert attempting to extort the Denver. Give him this recording. You got all? Every word. Frankie looked at the door where they'd exited. Now we see how deep this goes. That night, Marie called from Janet Dunlap's apartment. How bad was it? They made their play. I made mine. Frankie, Janet's been asking around. She knows a prosecutor who's been trying to build a case against police corruption. These guys, they have connections. High up. How high? She doesn't know. But every case against them disappears. Witnesses recant. Evidence vanishes. Frankie stared out his apartment window at the city lights. Then we don't go through normal channels. What do you mean? I mean, we build a case so airtight with so many redundancies that it can't disappear. And we make sure the right people see it, people who can't be bought. Who? I'm working on that. He didn't tell her about the third call he'd made earlier to a federal prosecutor he'd helped in Afghanistan, a man who owed him a life debt. Marie, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Document everything. Every business they've hit. Every victim. Build me a database. But keep it offline, paper only, multiple copies, different locations. You think they'll come for digital evidence? I know they will. These guys aren't stupid. They're just arrogant. There's a difference. Frankie, I'm scared. He gripped the phone tighter. I know, baby. But we're going to end this. Not just for us, for everyone they've terrorized. Promise me you won't do anything crazy. Frankie thought about Keller's hand moving toward his gun, about Gilbert's cocky smile, about Santiago being dragged out of his bar, about 12 years of watching corrupt officials destroy lives while good people suffered. I promise I'll do what's necessary. It wasn't the same thing, and they both knew it. Chapter 3. The Pressure. Friday came like a deadline. Frankie spent the week transforming the den into a fortress of evidence. For hidden cameras now covered every angle. Audio recorders in the booths. Dave and his other employee, Donna Bean, the waitress who'd worked there since day one, both briefed and ready. But more importantly, Frankie had spent the week talking to the broken. Santiago Richmond told him about 3 years of payments, of beatings when he fell behind, of watching his savings evaporate. Dina Hughes, who ran the dry cleaners, showed him scars on her arm where Keller had accidentally burned her with a cigarette for being short on payment. George Ash, owner of the hardware store, broke down describing how they'd killed his dog as a warning. Each story went into Marie's files. Each victim was a brick in the fortress Frankie was building. Jacob Payne had come through with information. Christian McClure, 15-year veteran detective, assigned to robbery homicide. Somehow he'd avoided every internal investigation. His arrest record was impressive, but his conviction rate told a different story. Too many suspects with injuries sustained during arrest. Too many witnesses who disappeared before trial. It's like someone's protecting him, Jacob had said during their secret meeting in a parking garage. Every time IA gets close, the case gets kicked upstairs and dies. Who's upstairs? That's what I can't figure out. But Frankie, be careful. Last guy who pushed too hard on McClure ended up arrested himself on planted evidence. He's in Rikers right now. Then I'll make sure my evidence can't be planted. Now, at 8 p.m. on Friday, Frankie stood behind his bar waiting. Dave was making drinks for the regular crowd, a dozen people who'd become family. He'd warned them to clear out if things got ugly, but veterans like Santiago refused to leave. You stood up for us, Santiago said quietly. We stand with you. The door opened. Christian McClure entered in full detective regalia, badge on his belt, gun visible, 3 uniformed officers behind him. Not Keller and Gilbert this time. New faces. The message was clear. This was bigger than 2 crooked cops. The bar went silent. McClure surveyed the room like a king inspecting his domain. Frankie Ramsey, we need to talk. Privately. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of my customers. McClure's smile was reptilian. Have it your way. He approached the bar. I believe my associates made you an offer. I'm here for your answer. My answer is no. No. McClure laughed. You don't seem to understand the situation. This is a nice place. Your profits look good. I've done my research. 50% of those profits are mine now. Or we shut you down. Frankie's hand tightened on the bar towel. 50? Your boys said 20. Inflation's a bitch, huh? Consider it a stupidity tax. McClure leaned forward. See, Ramsey, I looked into you. Decorated soldier. Intelligence specialist. Honorable discharge. You think that matters here? You think your medals protect you? No, but I think the law does. McClure laughed again, and his men joined in. The law? I'm the law in this neighborhood. I decide who operates and who closes. I decide who gets arrested and who walks free. He spread his hands. And I've decided you're going to pay or you're going to prison. On what charges? Does it matter? I could find drugs in your stockroom right now. I could find evidence you're serving minors. I could discover you're running an illegal gambling operation. Take your pick. Frankie reached under the bar, slowly, carefully. Every cop's hand went to their weapon. He pulled out a bank deposit slip. Here's what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to show you this week's receipts. $32,000. Good week. He tore it in half. Now it's 0, because I'm closed as of now. Permanently, if necessary. McClure's smile vanished. You destroy your own business rather than pay? I'd burn it to the ground before I gave you a dime. Then maybe I'll let you. McClure nodded to one of the uniforms, who pulled out a flask of clear liquid, lighter fluid. Maybe I'll do it myself. Dave stepped forward. That's arson, detective. That's illegal. Says who? You? A bartender? McClure turned to him. Who's going to believe you? Lights probably shorted out. Old building, electrical fire. Tragic. Santiago stood up. We'd all testify. Would you? McClure spun on him. Santiago Richmond, with 3 priors? George Ash, who filed a false police report last month. Dina Hughes, here on an expired visa? He'd done his homework. Every one of you has something I can use. Every one of you would fold the moment I apply pressure. He was right. Frankie could see it in their faces. The fear, the realization that fighting back meant losing everything. So here's what's going to happen. McClure continued. You're going to pay. Tonight. 16 grand. Half of what you made this week. And every week after. Or tomorrow. This place is ashes and you're in a cell. Frankie looked at Santiago, at Dave, at Donna crying silently in the corner. At his bar, his monument to peace, about to be destroyed by the same kind of corruption he'd fought overseas. This is a mistake, Frankie said quietly. McClure laughed. Is it? I don't think so. I think you're realizing I own you now. No, Frankie said. You're making a mistake. You should have stayed in your lane. Shaken down people who couldn't fight back. But you got greedy. You came after the wrong bar. Is that a threat? McClure moved his jacket aside, showing his weapon. Are you threatening a police officer? Are you resisting arrest? His hand went to his gun. The other cops fanned out, surrounding Frankie. Because that's what I'll tell them, McClure continued. That you threatened me. that I feared for my life, that you reached for a weapon first. Dave grabbed the phone. I'm calling 911. Put it down. One of the uniforms drew his weapon, pointed it at Dave. Frankie's mind raced through options. For armed cops, civilians in the crossfire. No way to win this moment physically. But he'd prepared for this. Slowly, deliberately, Frankie pulled out his cell phone. Drop it, McClure barked. It's just a phone. Frankie held it up. I'm calling someone. One call. Then we can discuss terms. You don't get to make terms. Frankie dialed. Put on speaker. 1 ring. 2. Who the hell are you calling? McClure demanded. Someone you really don't want me calling. The line connected. It's Ramsey. Code red. The Denver. You have 90 seconds to get out. He hung up. McClure stared at him. What the hell was that? Fair warning, Frankie said calmly. You have 90 seconds to leave my bar and never come back. Or what comes next is on you. Is that supposed to scare me? McClure pulled his weapon. I could arrest you right now. Gun on the table, drugs in your pocket. I'll make it stick. 80 seconds. McClure looked at his men, at Frankie's calm face. You're bluffing. 70 seconds. You called nobody. There's no cavalry coming. No one's going to save you. But doubt crept into his voice. 60 seconds. Dave, get everyone to the back. Now. Dave hustled the customers toward the rear exit. Santiago hesitated until Donna pulled him along. Stay where you are. One of the uniforms shouted, but they were already moving. McClure grabbed Frankie by the collar. I'm going to enjoy destroying you. Your bar, your life, your wife. 40 seconds. Maybe she needs a visit from my crew. Make sure she understands how things work. Frankie's hand shot out, grabbing McClure's wrist with a grip that made the detective wince. You just made your second mistake. The first was coming here. The second was threatening my wife. Let go before I... 20 seconds. McClure ripped his hand away, nursing his wrist. Cuff him. Cuff him now. 2 uniforms moved forward. Frankie didn't resist as they slammed him against the bar, cold metal biting into his wrists. 10 seconds. Shut up with your countdown. McClure was in his face now. Nothing's going to. The front door exploded inward. Police. SWAT. Down on the ground. Black-clad figures poured through the entrance. Through the windows. The back door. A dozen tactical officers, weapons drawn, voices overlapping commands. What the McClure started. Down. Down now. They moved with military precision. In 5 seconds, McClure and his 3 officers were face down on the floor, rifles pointed at their heads. Lewis Lynch, the SWAT commander, stood over McClure. Detective Christian McClure, you're under arrest. For what? I'm a cop. Lynch pulled out his phone, played an audio file. McClure's voice filled the bar. I could find drugs in your stockroom right now. Does it matter? I am a law in this neighborhood. Extortion. Attempted arson. Assault. Terroristic threats. Lynch smiled grimly. And that's just from the last 10 minutes. McClure's eyes went wide. You recorded, that's illegal. One-party consent state, Frankie said from where he stood, the uniforms now uncuffing him. I consented. The recording's legal. You son of a... Lynch's knee came down on McClure's shoulder, eliciting a scream. In the struggle, there was a crack. McClure's knee bent wrong as 2 SWAT officers secured him. Not accidental. A message. Resisting arrest, Lynch said flatly. Broke both knees trying to flee. Tragic. McClure howled in pain. You can't. I'm a decorated detective. You're a criminal in a badge, Lynch said. And you just confessed to extortion on a federal wire. Frankie looked at the 3 other uniforms being hauled away. Those 3 are clean, relatively. Just following orders. The real targets are McClure, Keller, and Gilbert. Keller and Gilbert are already in custody, Lynch confirmed. Hit them simultaneously. McClure, face pressed against the floor, legs twisted at painful angles, stared at Frankie with pure hatred. Who did you call? Federal prosecutor, FBI, and internal affairs. Frankie crouched down. You said you looked into me, but you didn't look deep enough. I didn't just do intelligence. I did counterintelligence. I root out corruption. It's what I was trained for. You set me up. No, Frankie said. I gave you a choice. You chose wrong. You threatened innocent people. You threatened my wife. You came into my home and told me you were going to burn it down. He stood. I just made sure when you fell hard. Jacob Payne entered through the broken door, badge out. We've been building a case for 6 months. Couldn't get evidence. But Frankie here, he got you on tape threatening, extorting, planning arson, assaulting a federal witness. Federal witness? McClure spat blood. Me, Frankie said. I've been cooperating with the FBI since Tuesday. The moment you threatened me, you threatened a federal witness. That's why SWAT came heavy. Marie appeared in the doorway, camera around her neck. And I've been documenting your operation for weeks. Every victim, every payment, every threat. She held up a hard drive. It's all here. McClure's face went pale. You bitch. Lynch's boot came down on his hand. Watch your mouth. As SWAT hauled the broken detective away, Frankie pulled Marie into his arms. The bar was destroyed, broken door, shattered glass, but still standing. Is it over? She whispered. Not yet, Frankie said, watching them drag McClure out. But it's a start. Chapter 4, Roots of Corruption. 3 days after McClure's arrest, Frankie sat in a federal building downtown, facing Assistant U.S. Attorney Willard Parker, the prosecutor he'd saved in Kabul when an IED hit their convoy. Parker had never forgotten. The recordings are gold, Parker said, spreading files across the conference table. But we have a problem. McClure's not talking, and neither are Keller or Gilbert. They're lawyered up, and their attorney is Floyd McGee, one of the best defense lawyers in the state. Jacob Payne sat across for Frankie. More than that, McGee's connected. Every time we try to prosecute cops, he's gotten involved. Cases disappear. Then we don't need them to talk, Frankie said. We have 17 victims ready to testify. We have video, audio, financial records. Which brings us to the real problem. Parker pulled out a document. McClure's been depositing his take into offshore accounts. Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Malta. We can trace it, but it's complicated. And the amounts, Frankie, in 6 years, he's moved over $8 million. Frankie whistled. 20% of every business in 6 blocks for 6 years? That's not $8 million. No, Parker agreed, which means he's getting money from somewhere else. Other districts, or he hesitated, or someone above him is feeding the operation. Jacob finished. Marie, sitting beside Frankie, leaned forward. I've been tracking the pattern. The businesses he targets, they're not random. They're all in development zones, areas where property values are rising. Frankie saw it immediately. He's not just extorting them. He's driving them out, making the neighborhood look dangerous so someone can buy property cheap. Real estate scheme, Parker nodded. But we can't prove who's buying. The companies are shells within shells. Then we make McClure tell us, Frankie said. He's broken, physically and legally. Pride's the only thing he has left. He won't flip. Frankie smiled coldly. Everyone breaks. You just need to find the right pressure point. That afternoon, Frankie visited someone he'd hoped never to see again, Ira Simpson, a former CIA operative who'd gone private. Simpson ran a security consultancy. Legal on paper, but everyone knew he specialized in finding secrets people wanted buried. Frankie Ramsey. Simpson greeted him in a coffee shop. Heard you took down a dirty cop. Impressive. I need information on Detective Christian McClure. Everything. Family, finances, mistresses, gambling debts. Anything that makes him vulnerable. Simpson stirred his espresso. That's not cheap. How much? For you? 20 grand and a favor to be named later. Frankie didn't hesitate. Done. 2 days later, Simpson delivered a file 3 inches thick. Frankie read it in his apartment while Marie worked on her victim database. The story that emerged was pathetically predictable. McClure had been a good cop once, idealistic even. Then his wife left him, took half his pension in the divorce. His teenage daughter, Amanda Norman, she'd kept her mother's maiden name, wanted nothing to do with him. He started gambling, lost big, borrowed from loan sharks. That's when someone approached him, offered him a way out. All he had to do was lean on some businesses, drive them out. Easy money. Victimless crime, or so they told him. 6 years later, he was a monster. But the file revealed something else. Amanda Norman was a social worker. She volunteered at a youth center in the city. and she had no idea what her father had become. "You're not thinking what I think you're thinking," Marie said, reading over his shoulder. "He threatened you. He threatened to hurt innocent people. He deserves to face everything he's done. Frankie, she's an innocent. Using her against him. That makes us like him." Frankie closed the file. "Not using her. Showing her. She deserves to know who her father really is. And maybe if she confronts him, it'll break him enough to talk." Marie was quiet for a long moment. "You're walking a line. I know, but I'm still on the right side of it." The next day, Frankie waited outside the youth center. Amanda Norman emerged at 6, tired but smiling at something a kid had said. She looked like McClure. Same jaw, same intense eyes, but there was kindness there. "Ms. Norman." She turned, wary. "Yes. My name is Frankie Ramsey. I own the Den, a bar your father tried to extort. I need to talk to you about him." Her face went cold. "I haven't spoken to my father in 3 years. Whatever he's done a lot. Extortion, assault, terroristic threats. He's hurt a lot of people. He's going to prison." Frankie pulled out a photo, Santiago's bruised face. "This man couldn't pay protection money. Your father's partner burned him with a cigarette." Amanda looked away. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because he's not talking. And there's someone above him, someone who's been feeding this operation. If we can't get to them, this happens again. Different cop, same crimes. And you think I can make him talk?" She laughed bitterly. "He hasn't cared what I think since I was 12. Maybe, but he's broken now. Physically, legally. You might be the only voice he'll hear." She stared at the photo of Santiago. "What would I have to do? Visit him. In lockup. Tell him you know everything. Tell him." Frankie chose his words carefully. "Tell him you'll never speak to him again unless he makes it right. Unless he gives up whoever's pulling the strings." "That's manipulation." "Yes," Frankie admitted. "But it's also the truth. Would you speak to him after this, without him making amends?" She was quiet. "No, I suppose I wouldn't." "Then all I'm asking is that you tell him that." Amanda looked at the photo again. At Santiago's scared, bruised face. Chapter 5. The Breaking Point. The interview room at the Federal Detention Center was gray and cold. McClure sat in an orange jumpsuit, legs in casts, hands cuffed to the table. He looked up when the door opened, expecting his lawyer. Instead, Amanda walked in. The color drained from his face. "Amanda? What? How did you?" "They told me you wanted to see me." She sat down across from him, keeping the table between them like a shield. "Was that a lie?" No. I've been trying to reach you for months." "I blocked your number, Dad." After the third drunk voicemail about how everything was my fault. Her voice was steady, but Frankie, watching through the one-way glass with Jacob and Parker, could see her hands trembling. McClure's eyes filled with tears. "Amanda, honey, you have to understand. I made mistakes, but I was trying to provide for you." "Provide? You were extorting families." "I saw the evidence. That bartender who testified. He has 3 kids, Dad. You threatened to burn down his workplace." "That's not. It's more complicated." "Is it?" Amanda pulled out Marie's photos. One by one, she laid them on the table. "Mr. Richmond, who you beat for being short $50. Ms. Hughes, whose arm your partner burned. Mr. Ash, whose dog you killed as a warning." Each image landed like a hammer blow. "Tell me how this is complicated." McClure stared at the photos. "I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You chose money over people. You chose power over family." She leaned forward. "Do you remember my 8th grade graduation? You missed it because you were working. Mom said you were probably drunk. I defended you. I said you were a hero, saving people. I was. You were a coward." The word hit harder than any blow. "You hid behind a badge and hurt people weaker than you." McClure's face crumpled. "Please, Amanda, don't. I'm still your father." "Are you?" "Because my father was a man who taught me right from wrong, who said police officers protect people." She stood up. "That man died years ago. I'm just seeing the body now." "Wait." McClure lunged forward as far as his restraints allowed. "Please don't go. I'll make it right. I'll testify. I'll give them everything." Amanda paused at the door. "Who's everything?" "The man who started this. Who approached me 6 years ago with the scheme. Who's been taking a cut, protecting us from investigations." The words tumbled out desperately. I'll give 'em up. All of it. Just please, don't leave me alone. Tell them, Amanda said quietly. Tell them everything. Make it right. Then maybe someday I'll visit again. She left. McClure collapsed, sobbing. Frankie entered the room with Parker and Jacob. McClure looked up, face wet with tears and rage. You son of a bitch. You used my daughter against me. No, Frankie said. I gave her the truth. What she did with it was her choice. He sat down. Now you have a choice. Tell us who's running this operation, or spend the next 20 years in federal prison, never seeing your daughter again. McClure was silent for a long moment. Then, Alan Bailey. Captain Alan Bailey, District Commander. Jacob's face went white. Captain Bailey? He's the one who's been killing IA investigations. For 6 years, he approached me when I was drowning in debt. Said there was a way to make money, clean up the district, and do good all at once. The businesses we targeted were in development zones. We'd drive them out, his partners would buy the property cheap, then sell it high when the development moved forward. Who are his partners? Parker demanded. I don't know. He never said, but the money was serious. Millions. He'd tell us which businesses to hit, which ones to leave alone. Anyone who got too close to figuring it out. Witnesses disappeared, cases got lost, evidence vanished. McClure wiped his face. I tried to get out a year ago. He said if I tried to leave or talk, he'd make sure I went down for everything. Said I was too dirty to flip. He was right, Frankie said. You are too dirty. But now you're useful. What do you want? Parker leaned forward. You're going to wear a wire. Call Bailey. Tell him you need money for a lawyer. Hint that you might talk. We need him to threaten you, to admit his involvement. He'll kill me. Even in here, he has reach. Then you'd better hope we move fast, Frankie said without sympathy. That night, McClure made the call from a federal facility phone, the conversation recorded by FBI equipment. Bailey's voice was calm, almost paternal. Christian, I heard about your arrest. Unfortunate. I need help, Captain. They're offering me deals, saying I'll do life unless I cooperate. A pause. What are you saying, Christian? I'm saying I can't do 20 years. My daughter. Your daughter wants nothing to do with you. Bailey's voice hardened. I've kept you protected for 6 years. Killed every investigation. Made you rich. And the moment things get difficult, you want to run? I'm not running. I just need. What you need is to remember who you're dealing with. You talk, and it's not just you who suffers. There are people, important people, who don't want attention on this. They have resources. Reach. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Your daughter, Amanda Norman, social worker at the youth center on 5th Street. She walks home alone every Tuesday and Thursday. Around 8 p.m. Dark streets. No security cameras. McClure's face went pale. Don't you dare. Then keep your mouth shut. Your lawyer is Floyd McGee. Let him do his job. Take your 10 years, keep quiet, and when you get out, there's money waiting. $2 million offshore account. A pause. But if you talk, if you even think about cooperating, your daughter's the first casualty. Then it's that bartender's kids, the reporter's wife, everyone you mentioned in your confession. Do you understand? McClure looked at Frankie through the glass. Frankie nodded. I understand, McClure said. You're threatening federal witnesses. You're threatening my daughter. And you just admitted to obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and conspiracy. Silence. Then Bailey's voice, ice cold. You're recording this. Federal wire. Every word. You're a dead man, McClure. Maybe, but you're a finished one. The line went dead. Parker was already on his phone. We need an arrest team at Captain Alan Bailey's location. Now, and get protective details on Amanda Norman and everyone else he mentioned. Jacob looked stunned. Bailey's been district commander for 8 years. He's decorated. Commendations. How deep does this go? We're about to find out, Frankie said. But he couldn't shake the feeling that Bailey was a rook, not the king. Real estate developers, millions in dirty money, 6 years of protection. That took more than one corrupt cop. That took infrastructure, power, the kind that didn't leave loose ends. And Frankie had just made himself the loosest end of all. Chapter 6, The Hammer Falls. Captain Alan Bailey was arrested in his home at 3 a.m. The FBI didn't take chances. They brought a full tactical team, expecting resistance. Instead, they found him calmly drinking scotch in his study, a gun on the desk in front of him. I wondered how long it would take, he said, hands up. McClure was always weak. Captain Alan Bailey, the lead agent, began. You're under arrest for extortion, conspiracy, witness tampering. Save it. I know the charges. He stood slowly. But you should know, I'm not the one you want. We'll let the prosecutor decide that. Bailey smiled. Will you? Because the prosecutor's boss might have opinions about that. Frankie, watching the arrest video later in Parker's office, felt ice in his veins. What does that mean? Parker looked grim. It means Bailey thinks he has protection higher up. We're running down his financials now, but... He trailed off. But what? The money McClure deposited? We traced it. It doesn't come from business extortion. It comes from a shell corporation called Meridian Holdings, which is owned by another shell, which is owned by another. 6 layers deep. Can you trace it? The FBI's trying. But whoever set this up knew what they were doing. They covered their tracks professionally. Jacob burst into the office. We have a problem. Floyd McGee, McClure's lawyer, just filed a motion to suppress the wire recording. Claims Bailey's rights were violated. On what grounds? He's saying Bailey was coerced into the conversation. That McClure, as a cooperating witness, was acting as a federal agent without proper authorization. Parker cursed. That's nonsense. McClure was authorized. McGee's arguing the authorization wasn't filed properly. Technical bullshit, but he's got a judge looking at it. Which judge? Jeffrey Stevens. Frankie saw Parker's face fall. Who's that? Judge Stevens. He's been on the bench for 20 years. Decorated career. But 3 years ago, his son got arrested for DUI. Hit and run. Should have done time. Parker pulled up a file. Case was handled by Captain Alan Bailey. Charges reduced. Kid walked with probation. Bailey has the judge in his pocket, Frankie said. Maybe. Or maybe the judge just feels he owes Bailey. Either way, if Stevens suppresses that recording, we lose our case against Bailey. And if we lose Bailey, we lose the connection to whoever's really running this. Frankie stood. Then we don't wait for the legal system. What are you talking about? Bailey said I was a dead man. That means he's got someone on the outside ready to move. If we wait for courts and motions, I'm dead, Marie's dead, and this whole thing disappears. He grabbed his jacket. I'm going to find out who owns Meridian Holdings. Frankie, that's FBI territory. The FBI's working through legal channels. I'm not. He left before Parker could stop him. Frankie called Iris Simpson. I need information on Meridian Holdings. Shell Corporation, 6 layers deep. I need the real owner. That'll take days, maybe weeks. You have 12 hours. 50 grand. Simpson whistled. You're serious. People are going to die if I don't get ahead of this. Including me. All right. Give me what you have. Frankie sent everything. Account numbers, transaction records, corporate filings. Then he went to the Denver. It was closed, still damaged from the SWAT raid, but it was his territory. He knew every inch. He also knew how to set a trap. Marie met him there. Frankie, what are you doing? Bailey threatened you. Threatened witnesses. That means someone's going to make a move. Tonight, tomorrow, soon. He checked the cameras he'd hidden. Still operational. I want them to come here, where I control the environment. You're using yourself as bait. I'm using us as bait. But you're not staying. You're going back to Janet's, and you're staying there with federal protection. Like hell. We built this place together. We fight together. Marie, don't. She pulled out her camera. I'm a journalist. This is what I do. Document truth. And right now, the truth is someone's trying to kill us. So I'm going to document them trying, and I'm going to help you stop them. Frankie wanted to argue, but he knew that look. The same one she'd had when she insisted on going to Afghanistan with the press corps, when she'd photographed warlords and war criminals with no fear. Stay in the office, he finally said. Door locked. Camera pointed at the bar. If anyone comes through that door, who's not me? You run out the back and call Jacob. Deal. They waited. Hours passed. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2. At 2:47 a.m., the back door lock clicked. Frankie moved silently, positioning himself behind the bar. He heard footsteps, 2 people, maybe 3. They were trying to be quiet, but anyone who'd done real field work could hear them. The door to the main bar area opened. Two men entered, both wearing ski masks. One carried a gas can, the other a gun with a suppressor. "Burn it all," one whispered. "Bailey's orders. Make it look like an accident." They didn't see Frankie behind the bar. Didn't see him pull out the Glock he'd been carrying since the threat started. "You should have knocked," Frankie said. They spun. The one with the gun fired, silent shots punching into the bar where Frankie had been standing. But Frankie was already moving, training from a dozen firefights taking over. He took the shooter first. Center mass, 2 shots. The man went down. The one with the gas can ran for the door. Frankie didn't want him dead. He wanted answers. He fired low, hitting the man's leg. He collapsed, screaming. Marie burst from the office, camera flashing. "Got all." Frankie pulled off the wounded man's mask. Rob Moore, one of Bailey's officers, someone who'd been in the background of this whole operation. "Who sent you?" Frankie demanded. Moore spat blood. "You're dead anyway. You and your wife. Everyone. They'll send more." "Who's they?" "You really don't know." Moore laughed through pain. "You kicked over an anthill and wondered why the ants are biting. The development project, it's not just real estate. It's millions in contracts. Construction, zoning, permits. Half the city government's in on it." Frankie felt the scope of it expanding. Not just a corrupt cop. Not just a captain. An entire network. "Names," Frankie said, pressing his gun to Moore's wounded leg. Moore screamed. "I don't know names." Bailey handled that level. "We just did what we were told." Sirens wailed outside. Jacob and the FBI, alerted by Marie's signal. But Frankie's phone buzzed. "Simpson." "I got it," Simpson said. "Meridian Holdings. Owned by a trust. And the trust beneficiary is—" A pause. "Christ, Frankie. It's Sean Richmond." Frankie's blood froze. Santiago's brother? Not just his brother. Sean Richmond, state senator. He's been championing the development project, pushing it through committees, and he's been buying up property in your district for 3 years. Santiago's brother, a state senator, using his own sibling's neighborhood as a cash cow, letting corrupt cops terrorize people, including his own brother, to drive down property values. Where is he? His office, probably. But Frankie, he's connected. You can't just. Frankie hung up. He looked at Moore. Senator Richmond. That's who Bailey's protecting. Moore's eyes widened. "If I confirm that, I'm dead." "You're dead anyway. But if you testify, you might live long enough to see prison instead of grave." Jacob burst through the door with agents. He saw the bodies, the gas can, Marie's camera. "What the hell happened?" "They came to burn us out. Kill us if necessary." Frankie pointed to Moore. "He's Bailey's man, and I know who's at the top. Senator Sean Richmond." Jacob's face went pale. "A state senator? Frankie, we can't just. He tried to have me killed. He's been terrorizing his own brother's neighborhood, and he's about to get away with it unless we move now." Parker pushed through the crowd, phone to his ear. Judge Stevens suppressed the Bailey recording. He's ruling it was obtained through coercion. Bailey walks on the wiretap. "Then we don't need the wire," Frankie said. "We have something better." He turned to the camera Marie had set up, the one that had recorded everything. The 2 men entering with arson materials and a suppressed weapon. Moore's confession about the development project. All of it. "Get me in a room with Richmond," Frankie said, wearing a wire. "Let me get him talking about the project, about Bailey, about the extortion scheme. He doesn't know we're on to him yet." "That's insane," Parker said. "He's a state senator. We need authorization from." "From who?" "Someone else in his pocket." Frankie's voice rose. "How many more people have to die before you realize the system's compromised? They own judges, cops, probably prosecutors too. The only way to end this is to force it into the light." Jacob looked at Parker. "He's right. We go through normal channels. This disappears. But if Frankie can get Richmond on tape, admitting to the scheme." "It's entrapment," Parker warned. "Not if Richmond thinks Frankie's trying to buy in." Marie stepped forward. Frankie approaches him. Says he knows about the development scheme. Says he wants a cut to keep quiet. Richmond either threatens him, which is witness tampering, or tries to buy him off, which is conspiracy. Either way, we have him. Parker was silent for a long moment. Then, "You'd be risking your life. If Richmond suspects anything." "He already wants me dead," Frankie said. This way, I get to look him in the eye when he falls. Chapter 7. The Senator's Gambit. The next morning, Frankie sat in Senator Sean Richmond's office overlooking the city. The senator was smooth, 60, silver-haired, the kind of politician who looked trustworthy in photographs. Mr. Ramsey, I'm sorry about what happened to your establishment. Captain Bailey's arrest has been troubling. Richmond sat behind his desk, all concern and gravitas. I understand you've been cooperating with federal authorities? I have, Frankie said. The wire under his shirt felt heavy, which is why I'm here. Oh, I know about the development project, about Meridian Holdings, about how you've been using Bailey to drive out businesses so you could buy property cheap. He watched Richmond's face carefully. I know everything. Richmond's expression didn't change, a politician's skill. Those are serious accusations. I hope you have proof. Enough to bury you. Bailey's talking. McClure's talking. And I have documentation of every extortion, every payoff, every shell company. Frankie leaned forward. But I'm not here to threaten you. No. I'm here to negotiate. Richmond's eyes glinted. Negotiate what? I want in. Your development project is worth hundreds of millions. I want a piece. In exchange, the evidence I have disappears. For a long moment, Richmond was silent. Then he laughed. You're trying to blackmail a state senator? I'm trying to be smart. You're going to make a fortune off this project. All I want is a small cut and the assurance that what happened to my barn never happens again. Richmond stood, walked to his window. Let's say, hypothetically, there was such a project, such an arrangement. What makes you think I wouldn't just have you killed? Because I'm not stupid. The evidence is in multiple locations. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. FBI, media, everyone. Frankie stood too. But if we make a deal, I'm just another investor. No threat. No problem. Richmond turned. Your former military intelligence. Decorated. Why would you throw away your integrity for money? Because integrity doesn't pay the bills. Because I've seen good men die for nothing while bad men get rich. Because I'm tired of being on the losing side. Richmond studied him for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his desk. Send in Roberto. The door opened. A man entered, late 50s, expensive suit, the kind of face that didn't show emotion. Roberto Wagner. Frankie recognized him from Simpson's Research, Richmond's business consultant. Roberto, Mr. Ramsey here knows about our development project. He wants in. Wagner looked Frankie up and down. Does he? He claims to have evidence. Says it's insurance. Wagner moved closer to Frankie, into his personal space. I don't like insurance. It implies risk. I prefer eliminating risk. Try it, Frankie said calmly. See what happens. Wagner smiled, cold as a snake. Senator, I need to speak with you. Privately. Mr. Ramsey, if you'll excuse us. Frankie stepped into the outer office. His heart pounded, but he kept his face neutral. Through the door, he could hear muffled voices. Wagner's angry. Richmond's measured. Then silence. The door opened. Richmond gestured back in. Mr. Ramsey, Roberto has convinced me we need to take your offer seriously. But we need assurance. Show us one piece of evidence, something meaningful. Prove you have what you claim. Frankie pulled out his phone. Called up a photo, McClure's financial records, showing transfers from Meridian Holdings. He showed them, but didn't hand over the phone. Wagner's eyes narrowed. That's Bailey's operation, which ties directly to you through Meridian Holdings, which is owned by a trust that benefits Senator Richmond. Frankie pocketed the phone. I have 6 years of records. Every payment, every transaction. Richmond and Wagner exchanged looks. Wagner nodded slightly. All right, Richmond said. You want in? Here's how it works. The development project has 3 phases. Phase 1 is nearly complete. We've acquired 60% of the target properties. Phase 2 begins next month. Construction permits, zoning changes, infrastructure. That's where the real money is. Contractors, permits, city contracts. $200 million in the first year alone. And my cut, 2% of Phase 2 contracts. For $1 million. Paid through a consulting company we'll set up in your name. All legal, all clean. And Bailey's done, Wagner said. He's exposed, burned. We'll let him take the fall. He keeps quiet. His family's taken care of. He talks, they aren't. What about the others? McClure, Keller, Gilbert? Prison. They're liabilities now. Richmond sat back down. But you, Mr. Ramsey, you could be an asset, a decorated veteran, bar owner, someone who overcame corruption. You could be the face of our neighborhood revitalization project. Frankie felt sick, but kept his expression neutral. When would I see the money? First payment in 30 days. Once you deliver all evidence to Wagner. Richmond smiled. We have a deal. One condition, Frankie said. Santiago Richmond, the mechanic. He's left alone. No more pressure, no more payments. Richmond's face hardened. Santiago's my brother. This is family business. Then treat him like family, not like a mark. A long pause. Then Richmond nodded. Fine. Santiago's out. But anyone else in the development zone, they're fair game. Frankie extended his hand. Deal. Richmond shook it. Welcome aboard, Mr. Ramsey. Frankie left the office, walked 3 blocks, then ducked into a federal building. Parker and Jacob were waiting in a surveillance van. Got it all, Parker said, playing back the recording. Richmond's voice admitting to the development scheme, to using Bailey, to the conspiracy. Wagner's threats. All of it. That's conspiracy, wire fraud, extortion, probably RICO charges, Jacob said. We have him. Not yet, Frankie said. He'll lawyer up the moment we move. We need the evidence he mentioned. Hard proof of the money flow, the property acquisitions, everything. Where is it? Wagner's office, probably. Richmond mentioned that's where they keep the operational files. Parker shook his head. We can't get a warrant fast enough. Richmond will have it all destroyed the moment he suspects. Frankie pulled out his phone. Then we don't use a warrant. He called Simpson. I need a team. Tonight, break into Roberto Wagner's office. Pull every file related to Meridian Holdings. That's illegal, Frankie. Anything we find can't be used in court. It's not about court. It's about exposing them. We leak the documents to Marie's journalist friend Janet Dunlap. She publishes everything. Public pressure will force the investigation, and once it's public, they can't hide the evidence. The FBI can get legitimate warrants, find the same documents legally. That's risky if Wagner catches the team. He won't, because I'm going to make sure he's busy elsewhere. Ow! I'm going to call him. Tell him I've reconsidered, that I want to back out. He'll come for me personally. Men like him don't delegate threats. While he's dealing with me, your team hits his office. Parker grabbed his arm. That's insane. Wagner's a killer. Former mob enforcer, according to his file. Good. Then he'll underestimate me. Frankie pulled away. Set it up. Tonight, midnight. Wagner's office. Get everything. Marie grabbed his other arm. Frankie, if this goes wrong, then I die stopping a corrupt senator from destroying more lives. He kissed her. But I'm not going to die. I'm going to win. And when this is over, we're going to rebuild the den and live the life we earned. She held him tight. You'd better. That night, Frankie made the call from the den. Wagner answered on the second ring. Mr. Ramsey, reconsidering our arrangement already. I can't do it. Taking money to cover up corruption. It's not who I am. Wagner's voice went cold. That's unfortunate. You know too much to walk away. Then come make me stay. I'm at my bar. Alone. You want to convince me? Here's your chance. A pause. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Wagner hung up. Frankie checked his weapons. Glock, backup piece, knife. He positioned himself behind the bar, where he had cover and sight lines. The cameras were recording. Marie was with Jacob and Parker in the surveillance van 2 blocks away. At 12:15, a car pulled up. Wagner got out alone. Confident. He entered through the front door, not bothering to hide. Mr. Ramsey, he called out. Let's talk about your mistake. Frankie stepped into view. I'm listening. Wagner pulled out a gun, a professional's weapon, suppressed. There's nothing to talk about. You know too much. You're too principled. You're a liability. So you're here to kill me. I'm here to erase a problem. Wagner raised the gun. Any last words? Yeah, you should have checked for cameras. Wagner's eyes flickered to the corners of the room, saw the red recording lights. You're recording this? FBI's watching right now. You just admitted to conspiracy to commit murder. Wagner's face twisted. Doesn't matter. You'll be dead before they arrive. He fired. Frankie dove behind the bar, but the first shot grazed his shoulder. Wagner advanced, professional and calm, firing steadily. Frankie returned fire. 3 shots, center mass. Wagner wore a vest. The impact staggered him, but didn't drop him. You're good, Wagner said, taking cover behind a booth. But I'm better. They traded shots, the bar tearing apart around them. Frankie was bleeding, shoulder burning. Wagner was methodical, advancing by angles, cutting off escape routes. Then the back door burst open. Not FBI. They'd been delayed by traffic. Instead, Santiago Richmond rushed in with George Ashe and Dave Blankenship, his bartender. Nobody kills Frankie, Santiago shouted. Wagner spun, surprised. That second of distraction was enough. Frankie lunged over the bar, tackling Wagner. They went down hard, both losing their guns in the impact. Hand to hand now. Wagner was trained, probably Krav Maga, brutal and efficient. But Frankie had military combatives and 12 years of experience. They grappled, neither giving quarter. Wagner got his hands around Frankie's throat. Should have taken the money. Frankie's vision started to blur. Then Santiago brought a bar stool down on Wagner's head. The enforcer collapsed, unconscious. Frankie gasped for air. Thanks. You stood up for us, Santiago said, helping him up. We stand up for you. FBI agents poured through the doors, weapons drawn. Parker rushed to Frankie. Jesus, you're bleeding. Get a medic. Wagner first, Frankie said, and check on Simpson's team. Did they get the files? Jacob held up his phone. Got them. Every document. Meridian Holdings, shell companies, property acquisitions, bribery records, everything. Janet Dunlap's publishing in the morning edition. By noon tomorrow, every news outlet in the state will have the story. Frankie let out a breath. Then it's over. Not quite, Parker said. We still need to arrest Richmond. Do it now, before he runs. They found Senator Sean Richmond at his home, packing. He looked up when the FBI entered, resignation on his face. It's over, isn't it? It's over, Parker confirmed. Senator Sean Richmond, you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, fraud, money laundering, and attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent. Richmond didn't resist. As they cuffed him, he looked at Frankie. You destroyed a $200 million project. Ruined careers. For what? Pride. No, Frankie said. For your brother. For Santiago, who you terrorized to make money. For every person in that neighborhood you treated like dirt. He stepped closer. You had everything, power, money, respect. But it wasn't enough. You wanted more, even if it meant crushing your own family. That's not greed. That's evil. Richmond had no answer. Chapter 8. Unraveling the Web. The story hit like a bomb. Janet Dunlap's article. State Senator's corruption ring exposed. Years of extortion, violence, and betrayal dominated every news cycle. Marie's photos accompanied it. Bruised victims, financial documents, the recording of Richmond's confession. By noon, 3 more state officials were implicated. By evening, the governor called for a special investigation. By midnight, the FBI had arrested 12 people connected to the scheme, contractors, city officials, more police officers. Frankie watched it unfold from a hospital bed, shoulders stitched and bandaged. Marie sat beside him, holding his hand. They're calling you a hero, she said, showing him her phone with news alerts. I'm not a hero, just a guy who couldn't let them win. That's what makes you a hero, dummy. Jacob entered with Dave and Santiago. Boss, Dave said, customers are asking when we reopen. They want to come back, show support. Tell them 2 weeks. Soon as the repairs are done. Santiago sat down heavily. I still can't believe it was Sean, my own brother. He knew what those cops were doing to me. He ordered it. I'm sorry, Santiago. Don't be. You showed me something that standing up matters, even when it costs everything. He looked at Frankie. How did you know you'd win? I didn't, but I knew that not fighting meant they'd won already. At least this way, we had a chance. Parker arrived with news. Judge Stevens has been removed from the case. Federal investigation into his connection to Bailey. McGee's withdrawn as counsel. Apparently, he doesn't want to be associated with this mess now that it's public. And McClure's cooperating fully. He's giving us everything. Names, dates, payments. What's his sentence? 20 years, eligible for parole in 12. It's harsh, but he earned it. Keller and Gilbert got 15 each. Bailey got 30, no parole. His attempt to threaten Amanda, Norman added years. And Richmond. That's the interesting part. His lawyer's trying to cut a deal, but the federal prosecutor, not me, someone higher up, is refusing. They want to make an example. With all the charges, Richmond's looking at 40 years minimum. At his age, it's a life sentence. Frankie thought about Amanda Norman, McClure's daughter, about Santiago, about all the families torn apart by Richmond's greed. Good. He earned that too. There's something else, Jacob added. Wagner's talking. Apparently, Richmond wasn't the only politician involved. There's a whole network, state senators, congressmen, city council members, all of them profiting from similar schemes in different districts. Frankie sat up, ignoring the pain. How big is this? Potentially massive. The FBI's calling it the largest corruption investigation in the state's history. Could bring down a dozen officials, maybe more. And it started because they tried to shake down a bar owner, Marie said with bitter irony. No, Frankie corrected. It started because they got greedy. They could have left me alone, taken their money from other victims. But they wanted everything. They wanted to control everyone. He looked at his friends. That's always how corruption ends. Not when good people fight back, but when evil people can't stop taking. Over the next week, the investigation expanded. More arrests, more revelations. The development project was seized by the federal government, assets frozen. The properties Richmond had bought were returned to their original owners at the prices he'd paid, a fraction of their actual value. It wouldn't undo the pain, but it was something. Floyd McGee, the lawyer who'd tried to suppress evidence, was disbarred for ethics violations. Judge Stevens resigned before he could be impeached. The entire district police command was replaced. Frankie testified before a grand jury, then a Senate committee. He told the story again and again. The threats, the extortion, the violence. Each time, he made sure to name the victims. Santiago, Dina Hughes, George Ashe, the faces behind the corruption. You could have died, a senator said during his testimony. Why risk so much? Because I'm a citizen, Frankie answered. And it's my job to stand up when my government becomes corrupt. That's not heroism. That's duty. The clip went viral. That's not heroism. That's duty became a rallying cry for anti-corruption advocates nationwide. Frankie hated the attention, but Marie convinced him to use it. You have a platform now. Use it to help others. Tell them how to recognize corruption, how to fight it, how to protect themselves. So he did. Interviews, articles, speaking engagements. Always emphasizing the same points. Document everything. Trust the right people. Never fight alone. And, most importantly, don't let fear win. Amanda Norman reached out 3 weeks after her father's arrest. She met Frankie at a coffee shop downtown. I wanted to thank you, she said, for showing me who my father really was. It hurts, but I needed to know. I'm sorry it had to be that way. Don't be. You gave me the truth. That's a gift, even when it's painful. She stirred her coffee. I visited him yesterday. In prison. How is he? Broken. Really broken. Not just physically. He cried. Said he was sorry for everything. She looked up. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him. But I told him what you said, that he could start making amends by helping the prosecution. He's testifying against everyone. Wagner, Richmond, all of them. That's good. It won't erase what he did, but it might prevent it from happening again. That's what I told him. She smiled sadly. You know what's strange? My father used to tell me that justice was about the greater good, that sometimes you had to compromise to get things done. He used that to justify everything, the extortion, the violence, all of it. What do you think now? I think justice is about standing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. She met his eyes. Thank you for showing me that. After she left, Frankie sat alone, thinking about all the lives touched by Richmond's corruption. Some, like Amanda, would heal. Others, like Santiago, would carry scars forever. But they'd all learned the same lesson. Corruption thrives in silence, dies in the light. His phone rang. Parker. Frankie. You need to see this. Wagner cut a deal. He's giving us names, senators, congressmen, judges. This goes all the way to the state capitol. Possibly beyond. How far beyond? Federal officials. Maybe even someone in the Justice Department. Frankie, this could take years to unravel. Then we'd better get started. You're not an agent. You're a civilian. A witness. I'm a citizen who knows how corruption works. And I'm not stopping until every one of these bastards is in a cell. Parker sighed. FBI could use a consultant. Someone with intelligence experience and first-hand knowledge of the case. I'm listening. It's temporary. 6 months, maybe a year. You'd work with the task force, help analyze evidence, interview witnesses. It's not field work, mostly desk analysis. Frankie thought about the den, about returning to normal life. But he also thought about all the other neighborhoods, all the other victims who didn't have someone to fight for them. I'll do it. On one condition, Marie works with me. She's an investigative journalist. Her skills could be useful. I'll see what I can arrange. Frankie hung up and called Marie. How do you feel about putting the bar on hold for a while? What do you have in mind? Bringing down the rest of the network. All of them. Every corrupt official, every dirty cop, everyone who thinks they're above the law. She laughed. When did you become a crusader? The moment they threatened you. The moment I realized this isn't just about us. It's about everyone they've hurt and everyone they will hurt if we don't stop them. Then I'm in. We started this together. We'll finish it together. Chapter 9. The den reopens. 6 months later, Frankie stood outside the den, looking at the renovated facade. The damages from the SWAT raid and Wagner's attack had been repaired. But more than that, the place had been transformed. New lighting, new furniture, a mural on the sidewall, painted by local artists, showing diverse hands joined together with the words community strong. Looks good, Marie said beside him. She'd been working with the FBI task force, using her investigative journalism skills to trace money flows and uncover hidden connections. Together, they'd helped build cases against 37 officials in 6 months. More arrests were coming. Yeah, Frankie agreed. It does. The grand reopening was tonight. The neighborhood had turned out in force. Santiago, Dina Hughes, George Ash, Dave, Donna, and dozens of others. People who'd suffered under Richmond's regime and were now free. Jacob approached. Big night. Biggest. You coming in? Wouldn't miss it. But first, I wanted you to know. McClure died yesterday. Frankie felt a flicker of something. Not quite sadness. Not quite satisfaction. Ow! Heart attack. Prison doctor says it was natural, but... Jacob shrugged. He lost everything. His health, his daughter's respect, his freedom. Some people say it was the guilt that killed him. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was just the consequences catching up. Frankie looked at the bar. Did Amanda know? She was with him. Said he apologized with his last breath. Said he hoped he'd done enough to make amends. Did he? I don't know. But he tried. That's more than Richmond did. Inside the den, the party was starting. Music played, not too loud, just right. People laughed, shared drinks, told stories of survival. Santiago cornered Frankie at the bar. You know what the best part of all this is? Santiago said. The neighborhood's coming back. Property values are rising, legitimately this time. Small businesses are opening. People feel safe. He raised his glass. You did that, Frankie. You saved us. We saved us, Frankie corrected. You stood up when it mattered. You all did. Because you showed us how. Later, as the party hit its peak, Parker pulled Frankie aside. Got news on the task force. Wagner's testimony cracked the whole network. We've indicted 3 senators, 2 congressmen, 5 judges, and a deputy attorney general. But there's one more target. Big one. Who? Todd Garner, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District. Turns out he's been protecting the network for years. Killing investigations, burying evidence. Without him, Richmond and the others couldn't have operated. Frankie felt cold. The U.S. Attorney? He's supposed to prosecute corruption, not enable it. Power corrupts. You know that better than anyone. Parker handed him a file. We're moving on him next week. Simultaneous raids, his office, his home, his associates. It's going to be the biggest takedown yet. You need me? Actually, we need Marie. Her journalist contacts can help us leak this to the media before Garner can cover it up. Once it's public, he can't make it disappear. Frankie looked across the bar to where Marie was photographing the celebration, capturing moments of joy and community. She'd risked everything for this fight. They both had. "I'll talk to her," Frankie said. "Frankie," Parker added, after Garner, the task force is winding down. You'll be free to go back to your life. To the bar, to peace." "Is it over? Really over?" "No. There's always more corruption, more fights. But this network, this particular evil, yeah, it's over. You won." Frankie looked at the crowd in his bar. Survivors. Victors. People who'd stood up and refused to be beaten. "We won," he corrected. The week passed in a blur. Marie coordinated with Janet Dunlap and national reporters. Evidence was compiled, arrest teams positioned. On Thursday at 6 a.m., the FBI moved. Todd Garner was arrested at his home, indicted on 47 counts of corruption, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. His fall made national news, a U.S. attorney brought down by the same people he'd been protecting. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The case broke open revelations about corruption at the highest levels. 3 U.S. senators announced they wouldn't seek re-election. A dozen federal judges were under investigation. The entire system was shaking. And at the center of it all was a simple truth. It had started with one bar owner who refused to pay protection money. One man who said no and meant it. A month after Garner's arrest, Frankie and Marie sat on the roof of the den, looking out over the neighborhood. The city lights twinkled in the distance. Below, the bar was closed for the night, but tomorrow it would open again, full of life and laughter. "You know what I realized?" Marie said, leaning against him. "This whole thing, everything we went through, wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about justice, not really. No, what was it about? It was about refusing to let evil win. About saying, not in my house, not in my neighborhood, not in my city." She turned to him. "You could have paid them. You could have avoided all of this. But you didn't, because you couldn't live with yourself if you had. Would you have wanted me to?" "No. God, no. I fell in love with a man who stands up for what's right, who protects people, who can't walk away from a fight when people are suffering." She kissed him. "I just wish it hadn't been so dangerous." "Me too." Frankie thought about the shootout with Wagner, the threats, the fear. But it was worth it. Every moment, every risk. Because now Santiago can work without fear. Dina can run her business without paying protection. George's new dog is safe. And everyone in this neighborhood knows that corruption doesn't have to win. What happens now? Do we just go back to running a bar? Frankie smiled. For now. But Parker says there's always work for people who know how to fight corruption. Consulting, training, maybe even teaching. We could help other communities recognize the signs, build cases, protect themselves. You want to keep fighting? I want to make sure what happened here doesn't happen somewhere else. That no one else has to face what we faced alone. He looked at her. But only if you're with me. I can't do this without you. You'll never have to. She settled against him. Besides, someone needs to document these fights. Show people that ordinary citizens can beat powerful corruption. That one person, or two, can make a difference. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city. Somewhere below, someone laughed. A car honked. Life continued, normal and beautiful and free. Hey, Marie said suddenly. What about Santiago's brother, Sean Richmond? I heard he tried to commit suicide in prison last week. He failed. He's in solitary now on watch. Frankie felt no sympathy. He made his choices. Now he lives with them. Do you think he understands? What he did, the lies he destroyed. Maybe. Or maybe he'll die thinking he was just a businessman who got unlucky. People like that, they rarely see their own evil. They justify it, rationalize it, blame everyone but themselves. And people like you? People like me? Frankie considered. We see it clearly. The corruption, the abuse, the casual cruelty of people with power hurting people without it. And we can't unsee it. Can't ignore it. Can't let it stand. Is it a curse or a gift? Both. He kissed the top of her head. But I wouldn't change it. Because if people like me don't stand up, who will? A year after the confrontation with McClure, the Den hosted a special event. Every business owner who'd been extorted by Richmond's network was there. Santiago gave a speech about survival and community. Dina presented Frankie with a plaque. To the man who reminded us that one person can change everything. Frankie accepted it, uncomfortable with the praise, but understanding its importance. I didn't do this alone, he said to the crowd. Every one of you fought back in your own way. Every time you documented abuse, every time you refused to give up, every time you supported each other. That was resistance. That was heroism. You gave us hope, someone shouted. No, Frankie corrected. You always had hope. I just gave you a target. Showed you that the powerful could fall. That justice was possible. He raised his glass. This isn't my victory. It's ours. All of us. Together. They drank to that. To community, to courage, to the idea that ordinary people could defeat extraordinary evil. Later, as the party wound down, Amanda Norman approached Frankie. She'd been invited, but hadn't been sure she'd come. Her father's crimes still weighed on her. I wanted to say goodbye, she said. I'm leaving the city, starting over somewhere new. I'm sorry to hear that. The youth center will miss you. They'll be fine. And I need. She struggled for words. I need to be somewhere my father's name doesn't follow me. Where I can't just be Amanda, not the corrupt cop's daughter. Where will you go? California. I have a job offer with a nonprofit that helps crime victims. Seemed appropriate. She smiled sadly. Maybe I can use what I learned about corruption, about standing up, to help others. You will. You're stronger than you know. I learned that from you. From watching you fight when you had every reason to run. She handed him an envelope. This is from my father. He wrote it before he died. Asked me to give it to you. Frankie opened it. Inside was a single page, McClure's handwriting shaky. Ramsey, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know you were right. About everything. I told myself I was just surviving, just making ends meet. But I was a monster. I hurt innocent people. I became the thing I swore to fight. You showed me what real courage looks like. Standing up when you have everything to lose. Protecting others when it's easier to look away. Being the man you're supposed to be, not the man circumstances make you. I died a coward and a criminal. But at least I died knowing I helped bring down the real monsters. That's not redemption. But it's something. Take care of my daughter. She's the only good thing I ever did. Christian McClure. Frankie folded the letter carefully. Thank you for bringing this. Did he make amends? Do you think? He tried. That's all anyone can do in the end. Try to be better than they were. Amanda hugged him suddenly. Thank you. For everything. For fighting. For giving my father a chance to do the right thing before he died. For showing me what integrity looks like. She left. Frankie watched her go, hoping she'd find peace in California. Marie appeared beside him. That was kind of you. Telling her McClure tried. It was the truth. He did try at the end. Do you forgive him? Frankie thought about Santiago's bruises, Dina's burned arm, George's dead dog. About all the lives McClure had destroyed in his pursuit of money. No, he said finally. But I understand him. And I hope, wherever he is, he's found some kind of peace. They went back inside. The party continued. Life continued. And in a city a little less corrupt than it had been, in a neighborhood a little more safe, the den stood as a monument to a simple truth, that one person standing up at the right moment could change everything. Frankie Ramsey had been that person, not because he was special or gifted or chosen, but because when evil came to his door, he looked it in the eye and said no. That was enough. That was everything. 1 year later, the den was still thriving. The neighborhood had transformed. New businesses, rising property values, families moving in. The corruption network was dismantled. Richmond died in prison. Wagner was serving life without parole. And the officials they brought down had been replaced by people who, so far, seemed honest. Frankie and Marie continued their work with the FBI task force on a consulting basis, helping other communities identify and fight corruption. They become symbols of resistance, proof that ordinary citizens could defeat powerful evil. But more than that, they become exactly what they'd always wanted to be. Bar owners, partners, people living a simple life in a place they'd helped save. And every night, when Frankie locked up the den, he'd look at the plaque Dina had given him and remember, to the man who reminded us that one person can change everything. Not a hero, just a citizen who'd done his duty. That was enough. That was everything. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.